gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Explode Your Expert Business Show. Today we are here with Yvette Ankrah. How are you doing, Yvette?
I'm good. Hello.
Great to have you here. A bright red t-shirt, jumper,
Yeah, little red number.
little red. We like that. Very, very punchy. I think is perfect for your personality. Having had a couple of conversations with you. So we're not here to talk about your red clothing. We are here to talk about how we can take better care of ourselves as entrepreneurs. So before we get into the nitty gritty, tell us a bit more about yourself and how did you ended up doing what you do now?
Okay, so I might start with my full title. So I'm Dr. Yvette Ankrah MBE. And the reason I say that is not because I'm not proud of my accolades or boasting. I love my accolades, but it's because I am a recovering overachiever. I have done so much, did too much always, and that has been my way of being. And the problem with that is that it led to me having really ill health. So from that experience, I now am very passionate about making sure people avoid burnout, being overwhelmed, chronic stress, and particularly entrepreneurs. And I'm someone that's always done multiple things. So I've always had a job, side hustle, business, multiple throughout my entire career. And that is now the group of people I love working with. So people that have got multiple businesses who are, driven, ambitious, successful, but are now very tired and burnt out and fed up, right? So because that's my journey. So I ended up, getting very, very ill. I was diagnosed with a condition called fibromyalgia. And I was still doing all these amazing things, but doing it at, 20% of, my capacity because I was dragging myself along whilst achieving those things. So people sometimes see the title and think, well, but it's like, yeah, that's great. But it came at a cost. So now I change how I approach things. I did a lot of work on me and bring that to my coaching and transformational work that I do with clients.
Before getting into coaching and transformational work, what kind of jobs were you doing, or what kind of businesses did you have? What was your background before starting?
So I initially trained as a journalist, and way back a long time ago now, I was writing for magazines when I was 16. I was interviewing authors and music artists because I did a lot of work in the arts, and then I moved into press and PR work and marketing, and then into business development. So I kind of segued that way. So lots of transferable skills, and I was working with education, tech companies, lots of different sizes of organizations. And then when I had my son, I started focusing on women because I'd moved out of London. I had a completely new demographic around me and found there was this amazing group of women, but they had no one to support them with their businesses. So, a lot of the business infrastructure wasn't available. So I was doing business consulting with that group. And then from there, I moved into the coaching. And then from that, I've evolved into the transformational work.
Thank you for sharing. Now, this is a bit personal. You can tell me if you want to answer or not.
Okay.
But you said that you were going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And that 100 miles an hour came at a cost.
Yes.
What was the biggest thing that you had to give up because of that going 100 miles an hour and not being well at the end?
Yeah. I had to postpone my PhD several times, which is why eventually I did it, but it took me 10 years. Wow. Because when I got ill, I had to relearn certain things. So reading, for example.
So you couldn't read anymore?
I couldn't process information. So
Wow.
I would look at a page of writing and I'd have to read it 6 or 7 times. It wouldn't go in. I couldn't get the information in. So From working at such a high level, I lost the capacity to do that. And I had to relearn how to learn.
How did it affect you?
Oh, it was immense. It affected my confidence, everything, my relationship with my child. I couldn't play with my son because I couldn't physically do it. I couldn't, carry him for long. I couldn't go out and run around with him. So it had an impact on every single part of my life. at its worst, that was at its, its worst. I would forget people's names, people that my family members, I couldn't remember their names. So yeah, massive, massive impact.
So what made you not give up in that moment? Because the easy choice when you're in that kind of situation is to say, you know what, I'm done. Because I can imagine it can be like a huge loss of confidence. Now you're there doing 100 things and be super achiever, be the best at everything you do, and then suddenly it's like, I cannot remember names anymore. So it's a huge gap. So what made you go on?
I think there's always been a part of me that is driven, and it was for a long time I was fighting this. I was like, well, I am not going to allow this to get the better of me. And that actually didn't help. What helped was when I said, okay, this is here for a reason. So what's the reason? And started changing my approach to my management of what was going on and why I was in that space, and starting to accept responsibility for some of the behaviors that led me to that space. And that was the game changer and the shift when and also I got to a point where I said, I'm tired of being ill. I can't do this anymore. I do not want to be ill anymore. So what do I need to do to not be ill anymore? And that was huge, and it was pretty deep, and I had to go down to slowly crawl up. And now I'm completely pain free. I don't have any symptoms. I'm the happiest I've ever been. So yeah, and I can play with my son, so my son's really happy.
So let's now look at well, first of all, congratulations. I know having conversations with you, that's definitely not been an easy journey, and definitely it transpires here in this interview. What was the PhD on? What is the doctorate you got?
So sociology. So I research race, class, belonging, and identity. And identity is themes that come up a lot in my coaching work as well as this. So who are you? How are you? How do you show up? And so it's identity. So I particularly was looking at middle class identity for second generation Ghanaians. So, it's, how they show that identity. Can they show that identity? So the mix of race, class, belonging, being British, growing up here, all of those themes.
That's fascinating. That's absolutely fascinating. I've had many conversations around this, in particular because by playing basketball, literally all my friends, they are either African, Caribbean, and a lot of them, they are like second generation, and they were talking about like, I don't really know where I fit in. Because my parents still maybe don't speaking, like they will still speak their native language. They maybe just not speak it that well, and but they have a perfect like fluid English accent, and no one see them as English. So I can see the confusion. All right. That's I'm really interested in cultures. That's also why one of the reasons why I moved away from Italy. It was unfortunately still is a very racist country, and they are afraid of what's different, and I couldn't stand that. So when I arrived in London, I was like, oh my God, it's like all the world is here.
Yeah, basically. That's why I miss London sometimes, because I'm not in London anymore. But yeah, I grew up in London. That was my hometown. That's where my whole journey began.
Right. So now we digressed a bit in terms of cultural stuff. Let's go back talking about the stress. I love when you define yourself as a recovering overachiever. I think I'm going to call this a podcast episode, The Recovering Overachiever.
Yeah,
that's going to be the title. I made the executive decision right now. It's such a good title. So how can people like yourself, like myself, super overachiever, want to be the best at everything they do? They cannot stand still for a moment. Otherwise, like I feel I'm itchy right now. Right? So how can we create a bit more balance in our life? I know you have a very interesting framework around that.
Yeah, so I talk about self-care planning. So, as an entrepreneur, you're going to be looking at your marketing plan, your business plan. You might be even going into the KPIs. What's my key performance indicators? What am I doing that's going to show this, and your goals. But around that, many people do not have a self-care plan. And even the term self-care sometimes makes people think about retreats and, breathing on a mountain somewhere and, saying Now, self-care is about, daily practices and habits that you create to look after yourself, mind, body, and soul. And it's lovely if you can sit cross-legged on that mountain, but hey, real life happens around you every day. So you need to be able to function without the mountain. Still go to the mountain, but you need to be able to function without it. So it looks at, I'm just doing a little wheel in my mind, 6 areas. So you've got work, and in the case of an entrepreneur, it'll be your business. And within that, there may be relationships that you have, even if you don't have day-to-day colleagues because you work by yourself, there's people that you interact with. So it could be suppliers, things like that. So if those relationships are positive, that's great. If they're not, you may need to look at how you address those relationships. Or even your environment, as I'm not showing you my desk at the moment, which has been tidied, but so, and the posters on the wall that you've got around you. So looking at all different aspects of how you work, where you work, what you're doing within your work. So often we don't invest in our own personal development after we've set up our businesses. Keeping up your skills, growing yourself, all of those things are part of that strand. The other area would be the physical. I know you play basketball, you like to do energetic things. For years I didn't and couldn't exercise. So it could be the big exercise, making sure you go to your matches, or it could be just having a walk every day, just to get out there and be outside. Then also the emotional. Who do you speak to? Who do you connect with? How do you discuss emotions? And there's nothing wrong with emotions, and being and experience those emotions is good, but it's when you sit and dwell in any emotion, which becomes a problem. So it's how do you manage that? Then there's relationships. So, there's all these people that you love in your life, and you probably don't see them very often. If you think about friends, when's the last time you just sat down and had like a coffee with a friend? Yeah? Those things are really important. And when you have those, and you talk about balance, when you're seeing those people, it's being present for those people. It's not thinking, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to be there. So whatever you're doing, be present for it. That way you don't feel the guilt, you don't feel the stress, because you're saying, I'm choosing to be here in this moment for these people, for this thing that I'm doing. And the last one is spiritual. Now, if you have a faith, it's how you engage with that. If you don't have a faith, that's fine. But it's understanding there's something maybe more than you, and you maybe want to connect with that. It could be giving back. So working within a community, doing things for other people, that's all about nourishing the spirit.
Yeah.
So that's what the self-care plan, those are the areas that you cover, and you'll kind of look at what's going on in your life, look at what areas you want to develop, and then start doing small things on a daily basis to maintain those things. And that helps build resilience, keep you balanced, helps you, with your physicality, and you'll find that you will actually change how you behave. It will create new habits, new ways of being.
Oh wow, absolutely love it. I love also how well structured it is. So let's dive deeper into the business side of it, of the self-care plan. A lot of people, they'll be like, okay, I've got so many demands, and maybe I'm just working on my own, or maybe I have a small team, and I've got all these things going on, and it feels that all the pressure is on me right now. So how can we, so you mentioned a few things, so I want to go deeper on the business part of the self-care plan. How can we create an environment that is actually nurturing instead of destructive in the business? Okay,
so in terms of how you work with people, or?
Give me a bit of everything here. Like, what are all the, within the business, what are some of the strategies that we can specifically put in place to create a self-care plan on the business side?
Well, all of this will connect to the business, because it's about you and how you show up in those spaces, right? So, for example, if it's about boundary management, so you may have colleagues or people that text you or email you all the time, and you feel that you have to respond all the time, right? It's time to put some boundaries in. It's time to, it could be physical boundaries in terms of you switch off your email at a certain time. I know that might be hard for you, but you actually say, I actually will work between these times and have set times. And then you can flex that on occasion, but you give yourself the permission to say, on these days, I will only answer emails between these hours.
Yep.
Yeah. switching off distractions, all the things that beep and annoy you through your day on your computer, tweet, 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 tweet. Get rid of them. Switch them off. Have periods of focus that can help you as well. So if you're working on something, you say, I really need to get this done. Let people know that, book that time out as if it was a client and focus on it. Switch off the phone. Those things help you feel more in control, less overwhelmed, and also tell people that you're not available right now.
What if you are, like, I'm curious now, because for some people it becomes easier saying, okay, these are my boundaries, but then for some people that are more like people pleasers, like I was before, and I need still to catch myself because I can be a huge people pleaser. What are some of the things that, or the strategies or something to say that could actually get someone not just to think, oh, I know I need to put it, but not doing it, but actually to get out there and say, no, these are my boundaries?
Okay, so if you say yes, what is the consequence of you saying yes? Yeah. So if you say yes to something, it obviously means that you may have to say no to something else. Right. So what's important to you? And so start looking at your goals, your values, and how things align to what you really want. Because otherwise you're doing everything out there and then you're not feeling happy within yourself. And that's one of the things, looking at what you really want and starting from in here.
Start from the inside and then put down those boundaries. I love what you mentioned about the notifications.
Those are practical steps.
Well, they're really important. They're really important. I mean, I've been living a notification-free life for the past 3.5 years. The only notification I have on my phone are phone calls. So then I can see whatever. My wife is definitely not really happy, but she knows that we have a structure. So if someone needs something urgent from me, they call me 3 times. Because the first 2 times they call me, unless it's a scheduled call, I don't pick up the phone. And that's something that it helped massively in terms of running my business and be more productive, not being interrupted by random calls. And if someone needs really something, they can send a text and I get back to them when I want, or they can send a voicemail and then I will get back to them. So that's brilliant strategy. I want to talk about dealing with toxic people when they are really ingrained in your life, because sometimes you might have some toxic people that is easy to get rid of. It's like, no, I don't want you in my life anymore, goodbye. But sometimes you have toxic people that they can be family members, or they can be people like they are really in your inner circle, where it's going to be very difficult to say, oh, goodbye. Do you have any suggestion or any recommendation in this kind of situation?
Well, with those kind of things, it's about perspective. So what is it about that person that irritates you? You may find it's something that's about you rather than them. Deep. But that's sometimes there's an emotion that's triggered by whatever they've said, but it's not about them, because they may have no awareness that you feel that way. You've created a feeling based on that. So maybe think, what is it about that person, what they've said or how they said it, that makes me feel this way? Because very few people are actually being intentionally malicious. It's usually how you receive that body language and shift, and you're feeling something, you're engaging something, and sometimes it's to do with other things, but it's bringing up that emotion. And if that's something that's constantly there with that person, there's something going on here that you might want to look at.
So and so that's one. And what if actually that person is actually, I don't want that person in my life. I've done this. So first of all, do the exploration and explore what's triggering that, because absolutely you cannot. Everything you experience is not anyone else's fault. They're just doing them.
Exactly.
And you are responding to whatever they did or whatever they said to you. And then let's say you explore that and you say, okay, on one scenario, is something I want to address. So I'm just going to have maybe a conversation or work on that
You should
deeper
do.
with someone. On the other side, I can say, actually, no, I don't want this person in my life.
Okay. So what is the purpose that they serve in your life?
Ooh, that's deep again. Tell me more.
So they're in your world for a reason. What is it that they're there for? Do they help you achieve something? Is there a higher purpose? Is there a connection that otherwise, then why are you having a conversation with them?
That's a very good point. So it's thinking about, okay, so this person is in your life for a reason. That's why he's in your life.
Yeah.
Then what's the purpose of this person being in your life? So if everyone who's listening right now, if you think about all the people that you have, some people that might be you hang out and you have a great relationship with other that think about what purpose are they serving right now?
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. So I want to go now and talk about a bit more in terms of yourself, because I'm sure that some people can pick up some ideas on how do you create your self-care plan.
Okay.
So what are some of the things that you put in place in your life? And of course, everyone is different. So please, guys, take this as this is Yvette's word, but
Yeah.
I want to know Yvette's word.
So I am not sporty, shall we say. So I had to create a way of exercising. So I now bring in exercise 3 times a week, 30 minutes 3 times a week, right? It's not a lot, but it's what I need to maintain my well-being. And when I don't do that, I notice it. Things ache and I'm cranky. So 30 minutes across my week is not hard. Now, this little thing here, right? Water jug, right? This one is a bit faded now, but it has little lines that say how much water I have not drunk. So it's really a really simple and cheap way of getting me to drink more water, because once you're hydrated, your brain's happier, your body's happier, you work better. And I realized I was drinking very little water over the course of the day. So I think this cost me about £5 from like a high street store.
Yeah.
It's really simple. One of the things
what's your minimum amount of water you set yourself to drink a day? Do you have any?
I just try to get through this. Right?
Okay, get through them.
Get through one of these, yeah. I don't set minimums or maximums. Like if I get through one of those, I'm happy. Right?
Good. Okay.
Anything else is a plus. But one of the things I do practice, and I, would advocate anybody practice this, is gratitude. So I was doing it on and off for a long time, and then I made a commitment. I made a decision to commit to a daily gratitude practice. And what that actually does is it actually helps you reframe your brain. After 21 days, your brain operates differently when you start being grateful. And it may sound bizarre, but there is actually lots of clinical studies that prove the effect of this. So it's really good at building resilience, really good at helping you with anxiety, depression, any of those kind of things with your mind. And I say, if you're in a space where you're not very happy, don't start with things about you, start with things around you. So for example, it's not blue today, but blue sky, it's a brilliant day. It's not raining, quite frankly. That's great. And even if it's raining, it's actually, I say, well, that's good, because it means that the plants get water, we have food to eat. So finding 3 things every day to be grateful for, and doing that every single day. And then you find when a situation happens, you don't react necessarily in the same way you did. It won't be, oh, woe is me, or God, this stuff always happens. Actually, maybe this happened for a reason, or I'm really grateful this happened today rather than tomorrow, because it would have meant X. So it does change how you perceive things, how you think about things, and how you react to things. So if there's one practice I would say that everyone, try for a minimum of 21 days, it would be the practice of gratitude.
Oh, that's brilliant. That's absolutely huge. And in particular, when you have those situations where you feel that, why me? We all have those days. It's like, why me? Why everything is happening to me? That is a huge, very powerful exercise to kind of come out from victim mode and see.
Yes, you get your power back, and you're
Yeah, this is not the only thing that is happening right now. You put things in perspective. Sometimes when we have negative things happening, it feels like that's the only thing that is happening, and we filter out all the other things that we have, or that are good in our lives, or the resources that we have. So absolutely, very, very powerful. Okay, so we are towards the end right now. This is the part where we asked about what is called lifting the veil,
Okay.
where we ask about something that may be a book or an app or a tool or a habit that is worth sharing, that everyone like should do in their life, in your opinion, or they should read. What's that for you?
Meditation.
Okay, tell me
It's
more.
meditation. It's such a game changer. And again, I do a variety of meditations. I do walking meditation. I do guided meditations. I just do some breathing sometimes, because especially if you've got a busy day, just setting yourself up with just taking some breaths and just focusing on what you want to get out of that day, how you're going to be. You'll be amazed how you don't feel stressed out, how you flow through the day, how things just work. I call them green light days, where everything just goes lovely. It works beautifully. When you start getting stressed out and hung up in your little world, they become red light days. You know, you catch your coat on the door handle, the lights are red, you're late for the meeting, because your whole being is in that energy mode. And I find meditation also helps you keep a nice, beautiful energy going. And yeah, I don't always do still, so sometimes just walking, and the walking meditation is a great one. It's just being aware of your body, just feeling your feet on the floor, feeling each step, feeling the muscles that make you move, just focusing on moving. And that's a great one.
Very, very, very powerful meditation. For everyone else also maybe watching, maybe you're having a Fitbit or something similar.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got.
That's my Bella Beats.
I got Fitbit. By the way, Fitbit is not sponsoring this show, so
Yeah, and neither
disclaimer.
is Bella Beats.
So they should send us some money for the mention. I'll make sure I reach out to them. Say, hey, we
Yeah.
mentioned you. Send me some money. But there is a feature where it actually guides your breathing.
Yes.
So it gives you like a little vibration when you should breathe in, a little vibration when you're breathing out. And I found that in particular if I'm walking or I'm commuting and I'm going somewhere in the tube and I got this 5 minutes or 2 minutes,
Yeah.
then even just having the vibration guiding me to breathe in and breathe out, it makes me more focused and helps me instead of wandering around. So there are a lot of different tools. No excuses not to do your
Yeah.
meditation.
No,
Okay,
and
otherwise tap
that's why I
tap.
like my tool. That's why I love my tool, because it has guided meditations on there as well.
Brilliant.
And breathing, and you know, as you said, it only takes a few minutes. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be a big chunk of your day. And that's why I love the idea of a lot of the self-care planning. There's some things that are very short and very easy to fit around what you do already.
Absolutely love that. That was a great interview, Yvette. Thank you very much
you.
for joining today. For everyone that wants to reach out to you and say, I need Yvette in my life, where can people stalk you or find out more about you?
I'm all over social media, so you can find me on Instagram. So Yvette Ankrah is on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and on Facebook is Yvette Ankrah Coach. But you can find me on all of those platforms. I have a website, which is yvetteankrah.com, makes life simple. So you can reach out to me on that. So yeah.
Fantastic. So all the links are going to be in the show notes. So make sure you scroll down and connect with Yvette. Yvette, thank you very much for being with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for watching. If you're watching, thank you for listening. If you're listening on the show, if you haven't subscribed yet to the podcast, what are you waiting for? Subscribe right now. Click that subscribe button so you don't miss any other incredible episode. And until next time, remember that together we grow exponentially. Ciao.